This conference will now be recorded.
Anyone? No one? Really? Hello? Deva,
Yeah, Aston.
Yosha.
Actually, I came to my sister's home, so I'm logging in my office laptop. And so,
Okay, but did you try that earlier? Not now, but did you try that earlier?
which one? The Azure portal? Yes,
Docker,
portal.
Docker. I'm talking about Docker. I'm talking about Docker. Yesterday we discussed about this, right? You remember? We talked
Mm-hmm.
about all this process, correct? Now, in this
Yes,
process, when we are talking about that, okay, how we are really going to map it, and then I also discussed about this particular thing, right? Specifically
yes.
this thing, that how the development really goes on, and what is your responsibility from the overall DevOps things, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
building of a Docker file, pushing that Docker file uh, to the ACR, and then deployment of the web application. This is what we generally do as a DevOps user, right? This is just 1% uptime, to be honest. Well, I'll tell you, right? There are a lot of things actually which you need to really do, but this is the basic. So, are you familiar? Are you okay with this particular thing? Are you confident that yes, you understood this one or no?
Yeah, we understood actually. And also, like you said last week, you will provide some documentation, right? Like uh,
Yeah.
uh, when we try, like just for quick reference.
Okay. Yeah. I
And
actually I'll
also,
tell
like
you what.
we want to go back and refer the video. Like we are not sure, right, which one is having this particular topic in that video. So
Oh, that's why I'm repeating that one more time, right? So if you remember, you
yeah,
can
yeah,
take out the
you are,
last video,
yeah,
right?
we understood whatever you are explaining, but only for the practice part. Like we are working, so someday it will possible. Some days, like we are really busy with some other works and kids. So that's why when maybe whenever we want to practice or concentrate on that one, so if we have that document handy, that should be that will be useful, right? So just for quick reference.
Okay. So
Even
just let me understand. So without that document, you are not able to do it?
it's not like that we cannot,
Hmm?
but if it is there, then it will be little easy for us to go through. That's why.
I
Even
understand
for
that,
the
but
concepts, like what you are explaining, even for the interview purpose also, just
no,
for
that's fine.
mhm.
No, no, I agree. I know that is one part actually which I'm missing on. I'm really trying. Same thing happening with me, right? I want to make a document. However, because of other things, because of everything else, definitely I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
really getting a time.
yeah,
So
I
that's
can.
the reason. But don't please get stopped because of that one piece.
Yeah, yeah, we are not stopping that due to like uh,
I want you guys to, if it is possible, can you help me to create a document? Just take out one topic, and maybe you can create. Whoever is getting a time, actually just share that thing, because look, I know that's the thing which I should really provide you. I completely get that. However, if it is a possible that whenever you're getting time, at least create one small document, share that with me, make it generic. Okay, don't make it like your name or something like that, and maybe we can just start sharing that one. I think if that works out, I will definitely give you. However, when I'm talking about these things, right, because now onwards, what is going to happen, I'll tell you. Till the point, whatever I've showed you, like creating manual and everything, it is fine. It is, I can really provide you a document. But now onwards, we are completely getting into a DevOps practices, which is mostly a coding, right? Mostly about how you use the code, the actual code, how you use the actual YAML files, JSON files, and I'm already giving you a ready-made files, like the way I give you Docker file, right? And I'm giving you some commands. Now I expect you to really do those commands, remember those commands, and try out and fail that command. If I give you the document for that command, what will happen? I'll tell you. You will be just familiar with that. You will just familiar with copy pasting things. You will not really write it, and you will not learn, and you will forget after like 1 week. That's the problem will happen with the documentation. I know documentation is important. I'm not saying that I will not provide you, or
No,
that's
no,
definitely one of
it's
the
not
thing.
like that. But
Yeah.
only if we have the time, like you explained, like if you explain today, so if you have time and if we can do by tomorrow itself, then it's good. But the issue is like, uh, I think you can understand, right? Morning to
No, no,
evening
I
work.
understand. I
It's,
know, but we have to take out some time. How can
yeah,
you really, that is very important. You have to
mm,
take out a time, otherwise you will lose everything. And you get a Saturday, Sunday. I completely get that you have, a lot of other responsibilities. But believe me, this 3 months is something which you want to really, I want you to at least take out some time out of your whatever the busy schedule you have. You
yeah,
have to leave behind everything. And yeah, I understand work, kids, you cannot ignore, but whatever else you have, definitely you have to at least spare time, maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening, maybe in the night, maybe
hmm,
afternoon, whatever, whenever you get time, maybe your weekends. If you don't practice, and believe me, on a weekend you just have to practice 2 hours, that's it. You
yeah,
just have to spend 2 hours, Saturday and Sunday, 4 hours in a weekend. I think you should be able to get it. You have to leave everything else, your movies, your Netflix, and all those things. Whatever, I know you might be not getting. I'm just giving a generic one, but you have to really leave everything behind. At least for this 3 months. After that, you don't have to do anything. You continue with your whatever the work you have. So please
yeah,
focus on this training. Please
mhm,
spend some time. So tomorrow you are getting a good time. Okay. I expect you guys to really go through all the videos and everything, whatever I have. And please try to work on this one. I will see in case if possible by end of day today, I will share you some document, at least the steps actually what you have to really do and follow that step. Try
yeah,
to complete that steps. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Perfect. So that's good, guys. I think let's get started. So as I mentioned, right, yesterday we have definitely discussed about how we can really do it from the DevOps practices. I'll just repeat one more time if you have received this one, right? So this is the overall thing. As I mentioned, right, you will be getting a project. Definitely, there will be a lot of project deliverables, task. Actually, we will be having based on that task. You can really create multiple sprints. Okay, each sprint will be having its own task to really complete, and this is the task. It's not just like you might be getting only for developer, but definitely there would be a possibility that as a DevOps engineer also you will be assigned some task here. Now what that task would be, say like if I am building on an application like a Java application, you will immediately know that okay, you need to build up a Java Docker image, and you need to also ask them, hey, what is your package name, what is your details, how you are going to develop, and all those things. So you may have to create a immediate a Git repository, so these guys can really start pushing that to a Git repository. Now when you are creating a Git repository, you need to also ensure that you are following all the standards, like you are creating a multiple branches there like dev, QA, and you are asking them to, hey, push it only to a dev, not don't push it anything. Okay, you can block some access and everything, so that all things you will have to really do in Git repositories. Correct. Now once we have this all the things, right, where we can really capture this, where all we can really go ahead and start capturing it. So for that one we have a tool, and that tool name is Azure DevOps. Okay. Now what happens when you talk about Azure DevOps, there is a difference between Azure and Azure DevOps. Okay. So you have Azure here. Whenever we talk about, so typically you have all the Azure services. I'm just saying left side is Azure services and right side is Azure DevOps. What happens when you really start working on this one, they have provided, so you have all the services, right? You have all your web applications, your VM, you have a VM. Okay, you have your VM, you have then you have storage account, right? just remove this one so it can be really easy for me. So say like you have a virtual machine here, right? You have VM here, you can have your web application. That's what we have seen so far, correct? Okay. Now what happens to manage all these things, right? Because you are really getting all this information and we are saying that, okay, when you really go with, there are multiple options which we can really have. The first option is what we have is the Azure portal. So you can really go and connect it from the Azure portal here, right? From the connectivity perspective, you can go with this one, or you can also use Azure CLI, which we have seen, right? You can also see this Azure CLI, and you can really connect from both these places using both the sites to this Azure portal using authentication, right? And once you authenticate it with this one, definitely you can start managing, you can start creating that one. So you can either use Azure portal or CLI, whatever you want. Now, all these things, right? Still, I will say that these are a manual way of doing it. Okay. So when I talk about manual way, that means actually this is not the ideal scenario that you are really going and log into your portal, or you are connecting with Azure CLI and you're doing whenever you really want. Now the biggest problem with this approach is that you do not have a track about what you are really going to do, and there is no standard actually which you really define. Because in a general environment, what is going to happen? I'm not going to ask you, hey, go ahead and create a one virtual machine or go ahead and create one service storage account. No, this is not going to happen. In a real world scenario, what is going to happen? As I mentioned, you will be getting a task. Okay, you will getting a task, and the first task you have is to create a virtual machine. Okay, say like you will be getting a task for creating a virtual machine, create a VM. Now, when you are really creating a VM, they are not expect that you just create a virtual machine like that way. Okay, so they will be expecting create a VM. Okay, they will expect that when you are really creating a virtual machine, you will ensure that you are creating a VNet. Okay, and you are creating a subnets, all the subnets and VNets whatever you have, because that one you without that one you cannot really create that. You can also need to ensure that you are creating a resource group, or you can defining the resource group whatever you have. So you can define or create a resource group, correct? And you will be designing, and these are all the things which are actually kind of like given to you by a architect. So he will be really creating this one, and he will give you that, okay, this is a RG, this is the subnet, or this is a VNet, and then your task is to really create a virtual machine. Now then tomorrow you come back and you say, hey, I want to create one more virtual machine. So you will not start from scratch, you will start from here, right? You will create another virtual machine. Tomorrow you come back, you say, okay, I want to create a storage account. Then you will say, okay, I want to create one web application. Okay, then your task will be, okay, attach this, or do it for the ACR, for example. I'm just saying, now you are creating a ACR for production, you are creating a ACR for development server, everything will really get it here. But this is a list actually which will really getting added. You cannot just create this particular thing just like an ad hoc thing. Every time you will have to get approval saying that, yes, I'm going to create this, I'm going to create this, and you need to also keep a track of whatever you have created and when you have really created and why you create it, correct? Because say like in case if you go ahead and create a virtual machine, your manager can come back to you and ask you, hey, why you created this virtual machine? Then you should be able to tell them like, look, I was actually I got a task. Okay, there was a task actually for me to create a virtual machine, and then because of that task actually you created this virtual machine, or because of that task you created this particular web application also as a part of that particular task. And that task maybe should be assigned with someone, some authority, right? Your manager or someone, that person should have actually assigned you that particular task. Otherwise, why you really worked on that particular task? That was assigned by your select manager. You said, yes, my manager actually assigned this task to me, and that's why I kind of like worked on this particular task, and that's why I executed, because it was already approved. You will not work on anything whatever you really have. The second thing is, yes, you are really putting up all these things in a if you want to track this particular thing, right, in a portal, using a portal, Azure portal, it is very difficult, because you have to track everything, all the events and everything, that when who really create that, you can really get that all the activities, whatever you do in a cloud, you can really see that activity. But what I want is, I want a specific thing or a specific place actually where I can track all these things, that who is doing what. And for that tracking, Azure DevOps actually will give you a lot of options. The first option what we have, okay, in Azure, is the Azure board. Okay, now Azure board is nothing but creating task and defining everything whatever you have. So it's a tool actually which will allow you to define and create a task. Okay, create and manage your project and task, manage project and task, or sprints also, right, whatever we generally call it as. So if you want to manage your sprints, your tasks, your your project, everything can be used, can be done using this Azure board. So if you have heard about Jira, right? There are some companies actually who use Jira, okay, Jira as a tool, which is mostly for this sprinting and all those things. Jira, okay, Confluence. You might have heard about these terminologies, right? Now, these things, Jira is definitely good for your all the ticketings, your sprint management, your task management, story management, everything is there. Confluence is for all for documentation. So in case if you see, you can really make a very good documents here, and you can really maintain that documentation here. That is also a very good option which you can really go with. Similarly, when we talk about Azure, like Azure is giving us a Jira option, it is also giving you an option about Azure Wiki. And Azure Wiki is nothing but creating a dashboard, creating documentation. So it can really give you all the things, whatever you have. It can really create an entire document like a Confluence, where you can create a very good, workflow document. Like the way I think we just mentioned, they were just mentioned that we want a step-by-step document. Now you want to create a step-by-step document. This is the place which you will be really creating Azure Wiki, which is again a very good tool to actually go ahead and start creating for everything whatever you have. So that's a very beautiful a way of actually creating all the documentations and whatever you are really doing it. Okay, so that's also one of the thing. Now apart from this one, these are all project management activities, right? We are talking about, okay, board, and it's a very extensive, there are bunch of things which you can really do in here. The second thing is the Azure Wiki. Also, this is a very good tool actually in terms of ensuring you have all the documentation and everything. Apart from that, there are two three more services which are really there. The third service is Azure Repo. Now this is a Git repository. Okay, we have seen GitHub, right? So far we have used GitHub actually for all our actions, for everything whatever we have done so far. But now we can see how we can use Azure Repos actually to go ahead and create that one. Now the third thing is Azure Pipeline, and all the action, right, all the automation is actually happening with this one, Azure Pipeline. This is a CI/CD pipeline, CI/CD pipeline, actually, which can be multi-cloud. So it is not just Azure; it's a multi-cloud support. Multi-cloud means it can really execute and run for any cloud, whatever cloud you have, be it your be it Azure, be it your Google Cloud, be it AWS Cloud, anywhere you can really run anything, you can deploy anything using this Azure pipeline. So this is a cloud agnostic service, right? Cloud agnostic means this is not like just supporting one cloud; it is supporting everything, everywhere. That's why this service is completely different. It is not 100% attached with or 100% a part of your Azure. This is different. Okay, and then you have one more service actually which is useful for your testing. So you have a Azure Test Plans or test cases. Okay, now what happens, whatever you are really going to create, right, how can you going to test this one? So you can really use the test. Now in our scenario, these are the four major things, and in this also, right, Your job is to just understand mostly these two pieces. Get 100% understanding about this one. This is okay, this is also okay, but this is mostly use, you will be using both, or you will be touching both the things, but not much, right? These are like, very minimal. This is something which we will be not actually covering in this particular thing. We are going to, we will be just creating this, because there are a lot of things actually which you need to really do. But and for this one, you should know how to write test plans. Okay, so this is mostly handled by QA person. But these are the two things which are really important, and this is where you will have to master yourself. You have to see that, how you can really use this technologies, how you can really run this, and what are some of the things which we can really do out of these particular pieces. Okay, so far with me, guys? Any questions? Okay, I assume no questions. Can you hear me okay? Can you see my screen? Just a quick check.
Yes.
Perfect. Now what happens, why we are really using, when I talk about these things, right, these two things. So the first thing is, when you talk about Azure Repos is that where we are going to create all our, where we are going to store all our, all our code, right? So there, then we will be having two types of code. So say like, in case if I have this one, generally whenever I create a Git repository, right? This particular Git repository, as I mentioned, we have seen that, it will be having multiple things. It will be having, say like, your application code, whatever the application code you are really going to create. So say like, you have an application code. Along with this, now what you are going to do, you are going to write some scripts, right? As I mentioned, Azure CLIs, everything, whatever you have. So now you will be having some script. Now that, what is that script is going, and that script is nothing but also a pipeline, okay, pipeline script, which will actually do certain steps. So like this way, I will show you how we can really create a pipeline, and that pipeline will also get stored as a YAML file. Don't worry, YAML and everything we will really get into as we move on. We will really understand that one. But there is a format which is like a YAML file actually, which will get created. And this YAML file is nothing but a script, okay, which will show you how you want to really run your application, and how you want to deploy or create some resources, or build up something in the pipeline itself. Now, this is the structure way. Now, why? Because what is going to happen is, once you create this YAML pipeline, this guy will going to create a pipeline which will kind of like spread it across multiple phases or a stages. Okay, so say like, this is your pipeline. Okay. Now, in this pipeline, you can have hundred of things. You can say like, you can just make it a little background. Okay, say like this one. So I'll say this pipeline may have multiple options here. So like, as I mentioned, right, it will be a build and release. You might have heard about these terminologies, correct? Build and release. Now build, minute, build and release. Now when we talk about build and then the release, are two things, two different things. Okay. When I'm saying building, that means now in a Docker context, right? In a Docker context, what are we really building here? We are trying to build a Docker image. So I'm going to say, okay, this is the process. This is a process where I'm going to do Docker build, okay, and Docker push. There are a couple of things actually I'm going to do here in this particular phase. So I'm going to say Docker build and Docker push. Maybe one more thing we can really do is Docker tag also, right? In case if I want to really do it. But say like, I don't want to do it, because when I'm building a image, that time only I'm naming that particular image as per the ACR, or as per the kind of like standard which I proposed for my ACR or a container registry. Okay. Now here, once I've done this one, then from the build or a release perspective, right? Because this is a release one, I'm going to just deploy my application here. Or deploy app into web app. Perfect. Now this is how my pipeline will start and execute. And the steps that how I should really do will be inside my YAML file. This is my file which will ensure that whatever I'm going to do here in this particular format, that is all getting executed with the two steps like build and release. For example, in the build, I will be just doing the build command. In the deploy, I will be just doing the deployment. But that time, okay, you need to also ensure that along with this script file, you should also have an application code. If you do not have an application code, you cannot really run that. So if you remember, right, I gave you one application or maybe a Git repository, right? And this is the one which I really gave you. I think you have seen that. No worries. So I've give you one repository, right? Now that repository, what it has is that it also have all the app code. Okay, you have all the app code like your Java and then maybe a .NET, Python, everything is there, right? With Python and say like web application. I'm just giving two, three things here, right? Now, all these things in this Git repository, I'm going to also have, say like in case if you go to a Python application, I'll just say you have this repository and then inside this Python, you have two files. The first file is you have, I think app.py, and then the second file is a Docker file, and then there is a third file which is a requirement.txt. Okay, so these are the three files actually which you have. Now along with this, and I'm just talking about from this to this, right? This is where I'm going inside. So this is my structure which I'm currently doing. Along with this, I'm going to also create one script file here. That's it. So I already have this. Everything is there, right? My Docker file is there, my requirement file is there, my Python file is also there. I have all the things here. I just need one pipeline which can really execute this one. Perfect. But now what we are going to do? This is all where we have this. We have this in Azure. Sorry, we have this in a GitHub. Correct. The only thing what we are going to do here or a change, we will be moving it to Azure DevOps Repo or Azure Repo. That's it. Perfect. Now there are two things which we need to really do here. The first thing is when we are really doing all these things, right? So you have this Azure Repo and you have this GitHub, which is already kind of like using this one. Now we are just going to copy everything to here and we are going to create one YAML file. That's the one thing. But before that, we need to do couple of things. The first thing is we need to create inside this Azure thing. Okay, we need to create a project. So generally, what happens when we talk about this particular thing? Okay, so this is Azure DevOps as a whole. Inside this one, you are going to also create a project. Okay, and then there will be a name for this project. Maybe I can say RK new project like this way. Okay, now this will be the project name. Under this project I will be having all these services. Like this I can create n number of projects. Now when I create a project or when I create this particular thing, why we are really creating this, right? Because say like I may have multiple teams, multiple development teams, multiple streams, multiple departments. There's a multiple divisions actually which are really working on, and I have just one company. So inside that company, I can specify different projects, and I can assign developers to different projects. So say like I can create an exactly similar project, and I can say, hey, a user one can have access to only this project. It's like a resource group, correct? We have seen that one. So I can say, hey, okay, you have a project one access. you have project 2 access. And in project 1, I can have the entire everything here. I can have a documentation, I can have a Git repository, I can have CI/CD, QA, and everything. I can really do it. I can create it separately to manage separate. So that's the first thing. So first thing is what? We need to create a project. The second thing is we need to create a service connection. Okay. So what happens when you really connect, and that's where we have seen the Active Directory. Okay, which is now intra ID in your as your word right now. So what is going to happen when you will be creating this particular thing, right? When you have this Active Directory, now with this Active Directory, you need to create one application server. So as we know, right, whenever we are trying to connect to this Azure CLI, we mostly use our username and a password. Correct? I'm logged in using a username password, and then I'm able to really connect, or using Azure CLI also, I can really log into the portal, and from there it automatically understand that okay, I'm logged in and it is allowing me. But when I have a service to service communication, application to applications communication, you cannot use the identity here. My identity or your identity will not be work here. So to connect to these two things, you need to create something like an app service here or app registration here. You will see this slowly, no problem. And this app registration will create one service principle. What is service principle? Service principle is nothing but okay, it's nothing but a service actually or ID which will give you a unique client ID and a client secret option. Okay, so this is nothing but the username and a password. Now, the advantages of a username and a password is that I don't want to give it to individual users name or details. I can give it to the individual's application. So I can create multiple application service principles. I can create multiple applications, and for every application, I can give a different thing. So you are going to provide this, which is nothing but a username and a password again, and you will connect your Azure DevOps using this service connection. So you are going to create one service connection here. So here at this time, 1 minute, I'll just leave it a little bit this side so it can be easy. Perfect. So you are going to create one service connection here. But in this service connection, you are going to say, hey, which authentication or which IDs, username and a password I should really use. You are going to say you have to use this username and a password. And you are going to then connect from this to this. That's first thing. And then you can really manage all the role-based access controls. So here you will be managing all the role-based access controls. That means what? Like the way you can give access to a particular user. So because I am a full admin, right? I have a full admin access. I can really do anything in my Azure cloud. But in a development environment, that is not something you will be relegating. You have a lot of layers where you can define the access that okay, this is the access only I want to give it to a particular user. This is the access. So you can have only access to create a virtual machine. You can only have access to create only a storage account. You can have only access to just read the details. You will not be able to create anything. In fact, you can also block the access to delete anything. You can just create anything or review, but you cannot delete that. So all, excuse me, all sort of things you can really configure based on whatever information you really want. Similarly, when you are creating the app services, you also want to provide a specific restricted access to that application service. Very important. Okay, so you will be providing the role based access controls with for this application registration whenever we are really going to create. And as I mentioned, right, tomorrow in case if you have another service, you will create another app registration here, okay, with all the same thing. And then you will be creating, like you have a different project, you can create a different app registration and you can give it to different project. Now why I can really create that, say like in case if this app registration I have multiple resource group, right? So I can specify resource group 1 or rg, say like dev, and this is my rg prod. Okay, now this app registration or the service principal whatever I created have only access to development, that's it. He cannot do anything in the production, and this app registration guy is having access to this thing. So what you are going to do, you are going to add all the developers into this one, because you know that developers is fine, you can really do anything. But for this app registration or for this particular thing, you will only include for specific people or specific services. You are not going to enable it for everything. Unrestricted permissions again. Okay, you can also create something else. So that's how you will be really creating. So as I mentioned, there are two things which are very important. One is by default it will get created the new project. The second thing is it will automatically, and then you will have to create one app registration and you will have to connect to the service connection, otherwise your registration will not work. Perfect. Okay, now, so far with me guys, any questions here? Are you following me?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. So what we have seen, right? Let's give a step-by-step approach. The first thing what we have talked about right now is that creating a Azure DevOps. First of all, Azure DevOps here. Then you have to create a project, new project, whatever you can really go with. Okay. Then you need to create app registration, right? This is the what we, I'll just make it a little bigger so you can really see that. App registration. Okay, get the client id, client secret, subscription id, and tenant id. Perfect. All these things you really need to create a service connection. Then once you have this, create a service connection in Azure DevOps, right? In Azure DevOps using above credentials. Okay, then you can create a Azure repo, which is we can really create using, or you can import from existing GitHub repo. I'll show you how we can release it and create a sample pipeline. Perfect. Now today what we are going to do here, I'm going to show you how we can really create these two things. Azure project, okay, and we are going to skip this particular part. We will connect that because this is again a entire process. I will show you how you can really do it, but I'm going to show you how you can really log into your Azure DevOps, how to create a new project, how to enable this Azure repo, okay, and then how to create this sample pipeline. So this is something which we are going to do. Now along with this, there's one more thing which is really important. Okay, so as we have seen this one, now what happens, when you are really using Azure DevOps, look, everything in for this one, this is free to use for few limitations, with few limitations. It's not like 100% free, but definitely yes, there are some limitations which are there, so you can only run, because eventually what is going to happen, eventually it is going to run. So whenever you create a pipeline, say like you have created one pipeline, whatever this particular pipeline I'm talking about, say like you have this build and release pipeline, right? Now this pipeline needs to be executed, right? You have built up this script, but where this script is getting executed, it is getting executed on the instance of your Azure. Okay, Azure instances, not your instance, right? This is again provided by Azure service, Azure DevOps service. Okay, this is provided by Azure your Azure DevOps Services. So this is the instance which is really your pipeline running on, because you need some server, right? You need something where to run it, and this is again internally it's all Docker on Kubernetes and everything. But say like this pipeline is running, and you need this kind of an instance which is really reliable. By default, this instance is disabled. This instance is disabled by default. It's not allocated, so the allocation is not happen. So to allocate this particular thing to your project, whatever the project you are going to create, right? This is a project which I have really created. So to allocate this instance, you need to request, and that request is a parallelism request. So they mention parallelism request. Okay, we need to create, okay, on Azure. Some there is a form, actually there's mention on the form, and we need to fill up that form. So they will enable this particular service for your project, and this you need to do it for every project. Say like in case if you create hundreds of projects, you need to create hundreds of requests for that every project, because that's a project level details. And I'll show you how we can really do that. But it's very simple. Again, it's freely available. However, it requires at least 24 hours to enable. It is not immediately started. So that's why whenever you're creating a project, we have to start that, and we have to create one request for parallelism. And I'll show you how this things really, shown in the pipeline itself. So when I'm trying to run anything, how it is really looking for this one parallelism. Spelling is parallelism request. Okay, let's see. So far with me, guys. Any questions on this one? Let's see this in action. Okay, perfect. So we have seen all these pieces. Perfect. Let's go back. Now I'm going to my portal. Okay. Here you have to really search for Azure DevOps. So you just have to say Azure DevOps. And here you can see it's a Azure DevOps organization. Now it is automatically going to take your credentials and mapping it. Even though this is a separate service, but it is an integrated service, right? That's where it's really important, and you can just click on my Azure organization here. It will take you to the whole new uh, place, right? You can see here I have a new web page. Here if you see, it's a portal.azure.com. However, here it's aex.azure.dev.azure.com. So it's a completely different URL itself. I'm going to, I have multiple projects. So I have this organization. I can create a new organization if I really want, but I'm okay with this particular organization. I can, and I can go it, or I can just create a new organization, and I can start creating a new organization here. That is also fine. Okay. But I'm going to continue with whatever the organization I really have. And here I get an option to create a new project, because if I click here, I have already created couple of projects. You can see these are the two projects which I already have. If I click on this projects, okay, I already have all these things, right? You can have a wiki here, dashboards, overview, you have boards, you have repos, your pipeline, test plan, and artifacts, right? There are multiple things which we have. Perfect. Now, when I go back, so in case if I want to go back here, I'm going to create a new project here, because as you can see, I have two projects. Okay, I don't want to create only two projects. I can create multiple projects. I'll just click on new project here. Why? I want to show you that parallelism request, how to really create it. Okay, so now here, as you can see here, it's a private one which I'm really going to create, because on my organization policies I have mentioned that I cannot create a private or public one here. And that's the beauty, because now you are going, when you talk about GitHub, it's all about public things, and you can enable public and everything. But as per my organization, I can restrict that nobody can create a public repository here. Everybody should create a private repository, as simple as that. I don't want to expose that to external world, because this is all my code, this is all my data which I don't want to share. Perfect. I'm going to create a new here. I'm just going to say DevOps batch maybe 730, right? This one, 730. So I'm just making this one DevOps batch 73. I can just create a thing and I'll just say create here. You can name it anything, whatever you have. Now, the moment I created this particular batch, right, I can see that I don't have anything. I can just go to overview. This is my dashboard, which will give me all the information. I can go to my wiki here. We can start creating a project within the wiki. We can start creating some information. We'll start seeing this as we move on. Then we have this board. Now you can see that I can create some new items. I can create epics, tasks, and exactly same thing like a Jira, right? If you have used Jira, it's exactly same thing. I can create a task. Say like in case if I want to create a task here, I will create a task. I'll name that particular task saying that create Docker image like this one. I can assign to someone, in case if I want to add some details here, I can really go ahead and save it. I can also add some links here in case if I want to assign to someone, because right now I have just one user. I can assign it to myself and I can just simply save it. Okay, once I save it, I can see it on my board also, that okay, how many tasks I'm actually having right now, which is in progress, what is in my backlog. I can create a task here also, like create a project, DevOps project, for example. Perfect. And then once I create this particular task, I can move it around, saying that okay, this particular task is in this state. I can say done. This particular task is done. So I can really play around with this particular task. I can create multiple tasks. I can create sprints. There are a bunch of things here. Okay, we'll talk about as we move on. Perfect. You can see all those sprints here, right? That what is really happening in my sprint. So this is my first sprint. What are some of the things which are really there in the sprint? How the things really work out. So all this board is all about that. All about whatever the thing which you can really do it. Let's focus on repos and pipeline here. So as you can see here, the moment I click here repos, I can see almost similar kind of a GitHub page, that it is asking me, hey, you have created this particular repository, and you have these options, whatever you have initialized this. And if I want to initialize, I can create a repository, because by default it will create a first repository of the name of my project itself. So my project name is DevOps batch 730, and this is like it's automatically create. I can also create new repositories, or I can manage or import new repository here. So what I'm going to do, I have a repository already, right? So if I go back to GitHub, and here I have this Docker repository I'm already using, and I've already gave you, right? You have all the options here like Java, Node.js, everything here. I want to copy all the data from this repository to my Azure repository. So I can use it in my Azure pipelines, and I can use it as my own data or as my own code. Why? Because this is all publicly exposed, so I can easily get it. Perfect. Let's see that. I will just do one thing. I will just copy. I'll just click on here. Sorry, not here. Yeah, it's code. I'll just click here. I'll go to local. Here you have this URL, right? Cloning. You just copy this URL. Okay, you just click here. It automatically said yes. Copy it to clipboard. Go back to your repositories and select here and say import repository. That's it. Click here. Once you say import repository, you just have to put up a repository name. That's it. And you are going to say Docker Git. Instead of Docker Git, I'm just saying Docker. I don't want to name that as a different thing. I can name it as Docker. That's it. So my repository name will be Docker, and it will pull this information. Now, because this is a public repository, I do not need any authentication, because it's already there and I don't really need any authentication here. So I can simply skip this particular part. I can just simply say import, and it should really import that in my repository, and this import is going on. And within like 1 minute it should be available, because it's all a text file, right? There is no binary or there is no heavy system which I have really have. It says import successful. Very good. If I go back, I can see all the data I'm having in my system. As simple as that. So no, nothing like copy pasting or doing anything like that. It's just a simple import from one repository to the another repository. That's again a very good beauty or advantage of actually Git repositories, that you can move around from here to there. It's very very simple. Perfect. And that's why it's very critical also, right? Yeah, that's why you don't really want to give access to your people to you as a public access, because if you give a public access, copying that, it is very easy. It's just like a 1 minute task for me to download entire whatever you have, because it is also giving me an option to download. I can download as a zip here. I can download this particular folder as a zip here. If I click on this one, I can only download this particular folder, and it will allow me to really download that. Look, can you see? It is downloading my zip file, and I already have everything, all the code, whichever I have in a zip format in my local directory. That's possible, quite possible. Perfect. Now, as we can see here, everything we have here, we have a Java application, we have .NET application, we have PHP, Python, web application, everything is there. Okay. And there is also one Azure pipeline file, a normal pipeline file actually, which I already created, and we are going to create similar pipeline. I'm not going to use this pipeline. I'm going to show you how we can really create a similar kind of a pipeline. Let's do one thing. So we have kind of like use a very basic use case here. We definitely will go ahead, and more we will be going to use this particular thing. As we move on, we are going to create multiple repositories here, and do these things. I'm going to say I'm going in this my pipeline. I want to show you that parallelism thing before we wrap up for today, and you have to do this at least today itself. Try this. It is very simple, guys. There's no brainer here. You just have to follow, click click click, and done. Okay, click here, create a pipeline. Okay. Now, when you are creating a pipeline, yes, I'm going to show you the complete YAML. I'm going to explain you the YAML thing. You have to write a YAML, as simple as that. But the beauty of Azure DevOps is that you don't have to write entirely. It is already giving you a lot of predefined pipelines or templates, already defined pipelines and templates. You don't have to worry about. Okay, you just simply start with this. How can we really do it? You can just simply click here, and you just have to select the pipeline or a Docker repository what you really want to do it. Perfect. Now it is automatically taking my pipeline which I have already created. Let's delete this. I don't want to create this one. I want to show you a new pipeline. So let me go back to my repos. I'm going to delete this file. I don't want this file. Okay. Or I will rename this file to something else. I'll just rename this file, and I will say old, and I'll just say dot something like that, old, right? I'll just say commit here. I don't want to use this one. I'm going to create my own. So I'll click here because it was having a similar name, right? Azure-pipeline.yaml. So if you already have that file, it automatically understand that, okay, there is a pipeline which you want to create, and it automatically pick up that code. I don't want that. I want to create my own code. I'll click here. I'll select again Azure DevOps Repos. Now here, now it is giving me a predefined configurations, what you are trying to create for, what pipeline you are trying to create, and there are a bunch of options here you have, right? So say like you have a Docker build image, right? This is the first use case we want to go with, right? We want to do build and push. Yes, exactly, this is what we want to create. We can also have a Docker deployment in Kubernetes. We can build Node.js, we can build Node.js, AngularJS, Python, PHP, starter pipeline. There's a lot more actually we have. You can deploy it in the .NET application, Android application, and Graphile, HTML, Maven. Oh, a bunch of them, bunch of options or predefined templates you can really use from. And believe me, at least one of these will be useful for you. But I'm going to show you a way to create it, and it's again very simple. But to start with, to just to start with, let's do with only the first use case which we have. What we use case we have this particular code, like the script or a repository app code we have. I'm just going to create the script. Why? I just want to do two things: Docker build and push. That's it. I don't want to do anything else here. I have my ACR already available. I'm just going to push it. Simple. Let's go back, and I'll just click here, and the moment it click, it automatically connect to my subscription, and it try to fetch the details about my subscription. It automatically fetch the subscription details. I'll just click here. I'll say continue, and it is going to connect to my repositories or my container registry. So I'm going to say name whatever I have. I'm just going to log in. Okay. I'll say next. I'll put up my password. I'll say next. So once I create this, right, it automatically will create a service connection just for my ACR, my Azure Container Registry. I'll go here and I'll select the Azure Container Registry. Right now, I don't have anything because I deleted my Azure Register container. Otherwise, it will show me this. It will show me my Azure. Oh, okay, it is showing me already. Sorry. I think I already have. Yep, sorry. An image name. So say like in case if I have some image name, I can really put up that image name. I'm just going to say app one, for example, and then it is going to create, because this is going to create that image, right? So I'm going to say make it image name as web app, and here it is asking me the folder where my Java, my Docker file is available. So I'm saying, hey, look, my Java Docker file is available in web app folder. How do I now I know this web app folder? Because if I go to my this one, I have this web app folder, and inside this one I have a Docker file to build up my web application Docker image. So I'll go back here. I mean, because I have imported the same thing, so the structure is exactly same. So I'm going to say web app and Docker file. Now this is going to create just a pipeline. It is not going to run anything. Okay, this is just the parameters which we are really putting up in a UI, so it can create a YAML file. Let's see that. Validate and configure. And we haven't written a small code here, right? But it is going to generate the code. Let's see. Perfect. Everything is generated here, and this is what you can. This is what you want. Everything is generated. It is automatically taken out the triggers, why triggers, what is this trigger, everything. It automatically put up the variables. Okay, and this is almost similar to your PowerShell script we have seen, right? It automatically picked up the service connection, your image repository, your container registry name, your Docker file path, your tags, your image name, your stages. So build stage. Here it is actually running one task. In this task, it is running the build and push. It is tagging that particular thing, and it is going and pushing it to my ACR. Completely automated. And this will happen every time you make a change in your Git repository. This pipeline will automatically start. Okay, the moment you make any change, your pipeline will start. That's a automation. Why? Because you want a process. Once you configure this process, right? Once you configure this pipeline, whenever a user developer is updating a code, say like developer is trying to update some code, this guy, he is trying to update the code. The moment he update, pipeline will understand that okay, there is some change in the code. It will immediately start this pipeline and will do entire process one more time. It will build up the image, it will tag that image with the latest version, okay, or new version, and that version will get deployed into your application. That's a complete CI/CD thing which is going to happen. Okay, now let's try to run this one. The final step. Let's try to run this one. I'm just saving, save and run. Okay, I'm running this. I'll just click here. Oh, okay. I think I already put up that parallelism request. That might be the reason. But you can see that it already started. You will see some error actually regarding the that when you are trying to build anything, you will see some error. Because I have already that particular piece, so you will get some error, and you can really manage that one. So what is going to happen, right? I will say this as your parallelism request. DevOps. Parallelism request. Yeah, they're saying parallelism request. So here they have this one. Yeah, this is the way actually they will be really going into. So what you need to do is you will be giving this error. You will be getting this error first time whenever you really go with. So here they will ask you, hey, what is your name? what is your email address, you have to put up the exact email address which you are really using here. So you have to put up this email address. Then it is asking you the organization name. As you can see here, it's automatically given. So now because I have actually enabled that organization level, that's why it is not asking me. If I do it for the different organization, it will definitely ask me. So you need to copy this organization level. How you can really copy? What is your organization level? The organization level is this one. So this is your organization, dev.azure.com, Rohit Azure 369. This is your organization. So you have to copy this. Not you will be having a different one, right? You will not be having the same one because you cannot create a same one. So you were whatever the name you have after this dev.azure.com, you have to copy this entire URL and put up in this one. And you just say, are you requesting for parallelism project for public or private? Select private and submit. The moment you submit, it will take 24 hours and then your parallelism request will be enabled. Right now, it is already kind of like created for me. So it's ran my pipeline. Otherwise, it will show you an error here before even running this pipeline. Now, if you see, right, without writing any code, without doing anything here, my application already push into my repository, and I can see that okay, in my repository, I have this particular thing which is really done. So what exactly same thing, right? Instead of logging into my Ubuntu system, I'm doing everything in my pipeline. Why should I really log into my Ubuntu system, make the modification, provide the Docker file and everything? Now I can manage everything from my code, everything from my repository. That's it. If I make any change here, if I make any change here into my file, I can just manage it, or I can change it to something whatever I really want. I can do it. Perfect. Or in one pipeline, if I want to build up multiple pipes, right? In case if I want to really run it for multiple application, I can really run it. I can do it for web application. I can do it for my, you know, different Python application. I can do it for everything, whatever I want. I can do it one pipeline to build up all the images. I can do that also. We'll see that on Monday, right? How can we really do it? But at least try this. This is very basic, which I have showed you. There's nothing here, no brainer. Simple steps, click, and done. At least take out the parallelism request. So once by Monday, you will at least have that parallelism request enabled because it will take 24 hours, minimum 24 hours. So far with me, guys. Perfect. Have a line? Any questions? Okay, no worries. So you have 2 days to really practice everything, whatever we just seen. So do practice a lot, and we'll come back on Monday to really get it done. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.